She had $28 left in her wallet. $28. 6 months pregnant. No job. No home. And the man who promised to stand by her. Gone. Just gone. That night, she wasn't looking for treasure. She wasn't chasing a dream. She just needed a place to sleep. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere with a roof. So when she saw the ad for an old storage unit going up for auction, she thought maybe, just maybe, she could hide inside it for a few nights. That's all she wanted. Corner. A blanket. A little piece. Everyone at the auction laughed when she raised her hand. $28 for a unit full of junk? They shook their heads. One man even patted her shoulder and said, "Honey, you just wasted your last dime." But underneath the dust, beneath the broken furniture, hidden beneath 3 folded quilts, was a small wooden box. And inside that box was a letter that had been waiting 28 years for someone to open it. 3 words on the envelope changed everything. To my daughter. Stay with me, because what this young woman is about to uncover isn't just an old family secret. It's a mother's prayer, finally answered. And by the end of the story, I promise you'll believe in miracles again. Nora Whitfield had exactly $28.43 left in the whole world. She counted it 3 times. On the dashboard of her 19-year-old Honda. Under the parking lot light of a closed diner in Willow Creek, Kansas. Because counting made it feel like she still had control. Which she didn't. Not really. $28. 6 months pregnant. Sleeping in her car for the 3rd night in a row. She'd never imagined her life would look like this. 29 years old. A bookkeeper. A woman who paid her bills on time. A woman who kept a little emergency envelope in the sock drawer labeled, "For rainy days," in her mother's handwriting. Because Miriam Whitfield always said, "Baby, life comes at you sideways. You'd better have something tucked away." Well, the rainy day had come. And gone. And come again. And swept the envelope right out to sea. Nora rested her hand on her belly. The baby kicked. Small. Firm. Almost like she was saying, "Hey, Mama, I'm still here." "I know, sweet girl," Nora whispered. "I know." She let her head fall back against the seat and closed her eyes. 3 months ago, everything had been normal. Well, not normal, but manageable. She'd been working at Kellerman Manufacturing for 6 years. 6 years of neat spreadsheets and coffee that tasted like burnt copper, and Wednesday lunches with Debbie from HR. She'd worn cardigans in 7 different shades of oatmeal. She'd known everyone's kids' names. She thought she was safe. Then, on a Monday morning in August, Mr. Kellerman himself walked into her office, closed the door, sat down, and used the phrase every worker in America dreads. "Nora, honey, this isn't personal." It wasn't personal, which was funny, because it felt extremely personal. Her hands had started shaking, so hard she couldn't sign the paperwork. He'd pushed a pen toward her, gentle, like he was doing her a favor. And she'd signed, because what else do you do? She'd walked out with a cardboard box, a coffee mug shaped like an owl, 6 years of photographs, and a severance check that she thought she really did think would carry her through until she found something new. Didn't, because 2 weeks later Nora peed on a stick, and the stick turned pink, and she cried in the bathroom of a McDonald's for 40 minutes. Not sad tears. Not really. Just shock tears. The kind that come when your whole life takes a hard right turn and doesn't ask permission first. Cole Ashford was her boyfriend. Had been for 18 months. He had a good smile and terrible follow-through. And when she told him about the baby, hands trembling, voice barely holding together, he'd looked at her the way a man looks at a bill he doesn't want to pay. "Nora, come on. This wasn't the plan." "I know it wasn't the plan. I mean, I'm not built for this." "Neither am I, Cole. But it's happening." He'd left the next morning. Just left. She woke up, and his side of the closet was empty. His toothbrush was gone. And on the kitchen counter he'd left a single sticky note. "I'm sorry. I'm just not ready to be a father." That was it. No phone call. No explanation. Just 8 words and a signature that looked like he'd already been thinking about someone else while he wrote it. Nora stared at that sticky note for a long time. Then she peeled it off the counter, folded it in half, put it in the drawer next to the takeout menus, and went to work applying for jobs. She applied for 147 jobs. She kept count, because keeping count made her feel like she was doing something. She got 4 interviews. 2 ghosted her. 1 offered her a position, then rescinded it when she mentioned the pregnancy. The 4th was a bookkeeping gig at a small dental office. She'd almost gotten it. Almost. But the dentist's wife had looked at her belly and said, in a voice that pretended to be kind, "Oh, sweetheart. You'll be on maternity leave in 3 months. That's just not a good fit for us right now." Nora had smiled, thanked her, walked out to her car, and screamed into the steering wheel until her throat hurt. That was 6 weeks ago. Now the rent was 3 months behind. The landlord had posted the eviction notice on a Thursday. She'd had until Sunday to be out. That had been last Sunday. So here she was, $28.43. A Honda that made a wheezing noise every time she started it. A duffel bag on the passenger seat. And a baby who kept moving inside her like she was cheering her mother on. From the only place in the world that still made sense. Nora opened her eyes, looked at the phone in her lap. It was almost midnight. She scrolled through Craigslist. She'd been doing it every night, looking for cheap rooms, looking for anything, and that's when she saw it. Storage unit auction. Ridgewood facility. Saturday 8 a.m. No minimum bid. Everything must go. She stared at it. Storage units. She knew about storage units. Her cousin Rita used to flip them, made a little side money buying abandoned units and selling the contents. But that wasn't why Nora clicked. She clicked because of one thought. If I bought a small one, and nobody was watching, maybe I could sleep in it for a few nights. That was it. That was the whole plan. Not treasure. Not hope. Just a corner. A roof. A place to lay her head. That wasn't a driver's seat. She bookmarked the page, turned off her phone, and curled up, as best she could in the back seat, one arm cradling her mother's old Bible. She hadn't read from it in years. Not really. She'd stopped after Miriam and Edwin died. Some grief takes your faith with it. Some doesn't. Hers did. For a long time. But lately, she couldn't explain it. She'd started carrying the Bible again. Not reading, just holding it, like a hand she used to know. "Lord," she whispered into the dark. "I don't know what you're doing. I'm not sure you're doing anything. But if you're listening, please, just get me through tomorrow." She fell asleep, with her fingers pressed against the leather cover. The Ridgewood storage facility sat on the edge of Willow Creek. A long gravel road, a chain-link fence, rows of orange metal doors baking under the September sun. Nora arrived at 7:45, $28 in her wallet, a thermos of gas station coffee she couldn't really afford, and a jittery feeling in her chest that she kept trying to call caffeine. She wasn't the only one there. There were maybe 15 people, mostly men, weathered, sunburned, the kind of men who'd been buying and flipping storage units for 30 years and knew exactly what a good one looked like. They stood in loose clusters, drinking coffee out of styrofoam cups, laughing at inside jokes she didn't understand. She felt small. She was small, 5'3", a cardigan that no longer buttoned over her belly, sneakers that were starting to split at the toe. She stood by her car and tried to look like she belonged. "You lost, honey?" She turned. An old man was standing behind her, silver hair, a face full of soft, deep lines, a denim jacket over a plaid shirt. He was leaning on a wooden cane, but he didn't look frail. He looked steady, the way old oak trees look steady. "No," she said. "I'm here for the auction." He raised an eyebrow, kind, not judging. First time. He nodded slowly. "You got somebody helping you?" Somebody who knows what to look for? No. He looked at her belly, then her face, then her belly again. I'm Silas, he said. Silas Prescott. Lived down the street from your building for about 5 years now. Nora blinked. Wait, you know me? I know your car, mostly. You always parked crooked in the driveway. Used to make me smile. She laughed. She didn't mean to. It just came out. I'm Nora. I know. She stared at him. Small town, dear, he said gently. And I'm nosy in the way old men are allowed to be nosy. I noticed when you moved out. Noticed you'd been sleeping in that car 3 nights running. Her face went hot. No need. He raised a hand. I'm not here to embarrass you. I saw the auction ad taped to the community board last night. Figured maybe you were coming. Figured maybe you shouldn't come alone. Nora didn't know what to say, so she said the only thing she could. Thank you. He nodded once, then jerked his chin toward the crowd. Come on, let's go pretend we know what we're doing. She almost cried. Instead, she followed him. The auctioneer was a wiry man in his 50s named Denny. He had a clipboard and a red baseball cap and a voice that could cut through drywall. He walked the crowd down a row of units, stopped in front of each one, and rolled the metal door up with a bang. The first unit was full of exercise equipment. Rusty. Broken. 2 men bid on it. Sold for $40. Second unit, power tools. Nice ones. The professionals lit up. Sold for $420. Third, old furniture. Water damaged. 2 folks made a half-hearted try. Sold for $75. By the time they got to Unit 117, Nora's stomach was in knots. Denny rolled up the door on 117. The crowd leaned in, then leaned out. There was a collective sigh. The professional buyers turned their heads. One of them muttered something like garbage and walked to the next unit before Denny even started. Nora looked inside. It was worse than she'd hoped, and better than she'd feared. An old dresser, missing 2 drawers, pile of quilts, boxes stacked to the ceiling, a cracked lamp, what looked like a rocking chair, buried under a canvas tarp in the back. Cobwebs, dust, the smell of old paper and mildew, but there was space. There was a corner. She could sleep here for 2, maybe 3 nights. Nobody would look. Nobody would care. Do I hear $20? Denny called out. 20. Come on, folks. Anybody? Silence. 15? Somebody give me 15. Nora raised her hand. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. 20. Denny looked at her, blinked once, then smiled, almost like he was doing her a kindness by not making her regret it. $20 going once. Twice. Nobody stopped him. Sold. He slammed his clipboard against the metal wall. The sound echoed. A man behind her chuckled. Congratulations, sweetheart. You just bought yourself a landfill. Nora didn't turn around. She just stood there, staring at the mountain of junk that was now, somehow, hers. Silas cleared his throat beside her. Well, that was decisive. I don't know what I just did. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. She looked at him. He was smiling. Just a little. Just enough. You know, he said, I've got a pickup truck, and Sundays are slow. I could help you go through it if you like. Mr. Prescott. Silas. Silas. You don't have to. Nora, he said gently. I've been alone since my Ruth passed. 8 years, 2 months. There is nothing on my calendar that a young woman and a baby couldn't improve. She swallowed hard. She nodded. Tomorrow, she said. First light. First light. They shook hands. His grip was warm, steady, and for the first time in 3 days, Nora didn't feel entirely alone. Silas showed up at 6 in the morning. On the dot. His truck was old but well kept. Faded blue paint. A dent in the passenger door shaped like a horseshoe. He'd brought 2 coffees and a paper bag with something that smelled like heaven. Cinnamon rolls, he said, made by a woman named Doris who has been running the diner on Main Street since Nixon was president. She refuses to sell them for more than $1. God love her. Nora took the bag with both hands, almost cried into it. They drove to Ridgewood in comfortable silence. He didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. The gate was unlocked. They rolled up the metal door. In the morning light, Unit 117 looked worse than she'd remembered. But also, somehow, sadder. It didn't look like a junk pile. It looked like a life that had been carefully packed and then forgotten. Nora stepped inside first. The floor creaked. Dust rose in little clouds around her ankles. She reached for the nearest box. "Careful, dear," Silas said behind her. "You're not supposed to lift heavy things." "I'll be careful." She opened the first box. Christmas decorations. Old ornaments wrapped in yellowed newspaper. A tangled string of colored lights. A hand-painted wooden angel, with the paint chipping off her face. Nora held the angel for a moment. Someone had loved this. Once. She set it aside. The next box, kitchen towels. Folded with almost obsessive precision. All the same brand. All the same color. Rose pink. Faded. The box after that, books. Old paperbacks. Romance novels from the 1980s. A hardcover Bible with a leather cover so worn it had gone soft. Nora paused on the Bible. She opened the cover. Inside the front page, in blue ink, someone had written, "For my daughter, whoever she becomes." Nora's breath caught. She closed it fast. She didn't know why. 2 hours in, her back was screaming. Her feet were swollen. Sweat had soaked through her t-shirt despite the cool morning. She sat down on a folded quilt. Just for a second. Just to breathe. Silas glanced over. "You take a break, dear." "I'm fine." "Nora." "I'm fine, Silas." He didn't argue, but he pulled a chair over and set it near her. She sat. While she caught her breath, she looked around the unit. And that's when it hit her. Something about this place didn't add up. The boxes were labeled. All of them, in the same neat, elegant handwriting. The furniture matched. Not by style exactly, but by care. Everything had been polished, wrapped, protected. And the picture frames. She'd noticed a stack of picture frames in the corner. 20, maybe 30 of them. Every single one was empty. She stood up, walked to the corner, picked one up, ran her fingers along the glass. "Silas. Look at this." He came over, squinted at the frame. "Whoever packed this unit," she said slowly, "took every single picture out of the frames." He frowned. "That's strange." "That's not strange. That's deliberate." They stood in silence for a long moment. "People don't just do that," Nora said. "Not by accident." "No," Silas said. "They don't." She looked around the unit with new eyes. This wasn't someone who'd died and left their things behind. This wasn't someone who'd moved and forgotten to pay the storage bill. This was someone who'd tried to disappear. The rocking chair was in the back corner, buried under a stained canvas tarp that had been draped over it like a shroud. Nora pulled the tarp off and gasped. Silas came up beside her. Whistled low. "Sweet mercy," he said. The chair was gorgeous. Rich walnut wood. Every curve hand carved. The armrests polished so smooth they caught the light. The runners moved, without a single squeak, when Silas gave the chair a gentle push. Even under 2 decades of dust, it glowed. "That's not from a factory," Silas murmured. "That's a craftsman's piece." He knelt down, grunted a little, turned the chair over on its side, ran his fingers along the underside of the seat. Then he went very still. "Nora." "What?" "Come here." She came. He pointed to a small brand burned into the wood, barely visible. A single word in fine script. "Whitmore." Silas sat back on his heels. He was quiet for a long time. "Silas, what is it?" "Jonathan Whitmore," he said. "He was a furniture maker out of Illinois. Started in the 50s. Died in 94. Made maybe 100 pieces his whole life. Every one by hand." "Okay." He looked up at her. His eyes were serious. "Dear, if this is real, if this is authentic, this chair is worth a great deal of money." "How much?" Silas exhaled. "I'd need to have it looked at, but last one I heard about at auction, a smaller one, not as clean, went for 11,000. Nora sat down. On the dirty concrete floor. Just sat. 11,000, she said. "Maybe more." "Silas." "Yes, dear." "Silas, if this is—" "Don't get ahead of yourself. We need it appraised. I know a fella. Runs an antique shop over in Millbrook. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Straight as a ruler. I'll call him this afternoon." Nora just kept sitting there. Her hand went to her belly, automatic, without thought. She smiled. Small. Disbelieving. "Maybe," she whispered. "Maybe we got lucky." Silas smiled. But there was something else on his face too. Something softer. Almost watchful. "Come on, dear," he said gently. "Let's keep going. Who knows what else is in here?" They kept going. By early afternoon, they'd cleared about half the unit. She was working her way through a stack of folded quilts near the back wall. Old ones. Handmade. The kind of quilts that had probably belonged to someone's grandmother. She lifted one. Set it aside. Lifted another. Set it aside. Lifted the third. And her fingertips hit wood. Not the wood of the floor. Not the wood of another piece of furniture. Something smaller. Smoother. She peeled back the quilt. And there it was. A wooden box. About the size of a shoebox. Dark mahogany. Its surface carved, with the most delicate design she had ever seen. Twisting vines, blooming roses, tiny leaves worked into the corners. It was clean. That was the first thing she noticed. Everything in the unit was coated in dust. Cobwebs. The residue of 2 decades of forgotten air. But this box, this small, beautiful box, didn't have a speck of dust on it. Like someone had wrapped it, protected it, hidden it on purpose. Silas. He was across the unit, sorting through a box of cookware. "Silas, come here." Something in her voice made him drop what he was holding, and come immediately. He stopped when he saw the box. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he knelt down beside her, slowly, with a small groan. "Now," he said softly, "that is not junk." Nora reached out, ran her fingers over the carvings. The wood was cool. The brass latch on the front had never been broken. "Should I open it?" "That's up to you, dear." She looked at him. But, he said carefully, "whoever hid a box like that under 3 quilts in a corner of a storage unit, they were hiding it for a reason." Nora took a breath. She undid the brass latch. It clicked open under her fingers with a sound so soft it was almost a sigh. She lifted the lid, and the world went very quiet. Inside, everything had been arranged with obvious painstaking care. At the top, a bundle of envelopes. Cream-colored, tied with a faded blue ribbon. Beneath the letters, a stack of black and white photographs. Beneath the photographs, a tiny silver bracelet. A baby's bracelet. Beneath the bracelet, an antique gold locket, engraved with flowers, hanging on a fine chain. And at the bottom, what looked like an old birth certificate. Nora couldn't move. She just stared. "Someone loved these things," Silas said quietly. "Yes. Take your time, dear." She lifted the top photograph. It was a young woman, standing beneath a cherry tree in full bloom, laughing, her dark hair blown across her face by a spring wind. She couldn't have been more than 20. Nora turned the photo over. On the back, in careful blue ink, for words, "Adelaide Hollister, Spring 1995. The name meant nothing to her. But the face. Nora couldn't look away from it. She kept staring at the young woman's eyes. Something about them was familiar. Not familiar like a memory. Familiar like a reflection. She shook her head. "Stop it, Nora. You're seeing things." She picked up the next photograph. Same young woman. Beside a young man, sitting on a park bench. both laughing so naturally that whoever took the picture had clearly caught them off guard. On the back, Adelaide and Everett, our favorite bench. She reached for the letters, untied the ribbon, unfolded the top one. The handwriting was elegant, steady, almost calligraphic. My dearest Adelaide, your father still won't speak of it. He thinks silence is the same as forgiveness. It isn't. Nora picked up another letter, and another, and another. They all had the same handwriting. The same signature. Mama. Some were dated. 1996, 1997, 1998. Then there was a gap. Then 2001, 2003. Then nothing. She set the letters aside. She was crying. She hadn't noticed. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Then she picked up the birth certificate. She unfolded it slowly. Certificate of live birth. Adelaide Marie Hollister. Born October 12, 1966. Clearwater County Memorial Hospital. Clearwater County. Nora stared at those words. Clearwater County, Missouri, where the Great Flood of 1997 had killed 43 people. She'd learned about it in a middle school history class. A teacher named Mrs. Peterson had shown them a documentary. The Clearwater River had jumped its banks after weeks of rain. Whole towns had been swept away in a single night. Nora had cried during that documentary. She didn't know why. Her mother had held her hand at the kitchen table that night and told her, "Baby, some things just hit you harder than others. There's no shame in that." She'd forgotten about it. Mostly. Until now. Nora set the birth certificate down, reached for the tiny silver bracelet. She turned it in the light, engraved on the inside, in letters so small she almost missed them. Adelaide. Not the child's name, the mother's. Nora's whole body went cold, because that's what mothers did. When they had to give up a baby, or lose one, they engraved their own name on the bracelet. So the child would always know, even years later, even across oceans, I loved you. I was here. She reached for the locket. She opened it. Inside were two tiny photographs, no larger than a fingernail. On one side, young Adelaide smiling softly. On the other side, a baby, maybe 6 months old, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Face barely visible, but you could see one tiny hand curled up beneath a soft pink cheek. Around the baby's wrist was a hospital ID band. Nora stared at that baby. She couldn't breathe, because she was suddenly, absolutely certain of something she had no way to prove. That baby had a birthmark. She couldn't see it in the photo, but she knew. She could feel it. On her own left shoulder, a small, pale mark shaped like a leaf. She'd had it her whole life. Miriam and Edwin had called it her little maple. They'd traced it with a fingertip when she was little and made up stories about how the angels had marked her before she came down from heaven. She'd never questioned it, never even really thought about it, until this moment. Nora. Silas's voice. Careful. Nora, dear. You need to breathe. She was gasping. She hadn't realized. She lowered the locket, closed her fist around it, held it against her chest. I don't understand, she whispered. I don't understand what this is. It's all right. Silas, Take your time, dear. Whatever this is, it's not going anywhere. She nodded, wiped her face again. She was about to close the box. She'd had enough. She couldn't process any more. But her fingers brushed against something as she reached for the lid. Something wrong. The bottom of the box, the velvet lining, felt loose in one corner, almost like it had come unglued. She frowned, pressed on it. Something shifted. Click. A small wooden panel, no bigger than a playing card, slid to one side, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the velvet. Silas made a sound behind her. Not a word, just a soft, sharp intake of breath. Nora's heart stopped. Inside the hidden compartment were two things. A small leather-bound address book, its cover almost brand new, and a single cream-colored envelope, unopened. its wax seal still perfect. Nora lifted the envelope with trembling fingers. She turned it over. Across the front, in the same elegant handwriting that had signed every letter in that box, 3 words. To my daughter. Nora stopped breathing. The storage unit disappeared around her. The dust, the boxes, the rocking chair worth thousands of dollars. Even Silas, kneeling beside her, watching her face, with an expression she was too shaken to read. All of it fell away. There was only the envelope, and her hand, and her heartbeat. Silas cleared his throat, very softly. Dear. She looked up. His eyes were wet. You don't have to open it here. She stared at him. She almost couldn't see him. The world was swimming. I know, she whispered. Take it home. Whatever home looks like tonight. Take it somewhere quiet, somewhere with a light, and a cup of tea, and time. She nodded. She placed the envelope back inside the hidden compartment, slid the wooden panel closed, placed everything carefully back in place, closed the lid, latched the brass clasp. She held the wooden box against her chest, with both hands, like it was something living. Silas. Yes, dear. That address book. I saw it. Why would someone hide an address book? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said gently, because they were hoping, someday, someone would come looking. Nora's throat closed. She turned to Silas. Can you drive me home? Yes, dear. I mean, to your place. He blinked. My place? You said you had a spare room. He hadn't said that. Not exactly. But she could see him remember offering it, silently, in that gentle way of his, from the moment he'd first seen her sleeping in her car. He nodded. I've got a spare room, Nora. It's yours as long as you need it. She almost cried. Instead, she just said, thank you. That night, Silas made her chicken and dumplings from a recipe his wife Ruth had written down in 1972. He gave Nora the guest room, a twin bed, a quilt made by his grandmother, a lamp with a yellow shade that cast the whole room in the color of honey. He'd already carried up an old wooden crib from his basement and set it in the corner. He didn't say a word about it, just set it up, wiped it down, made the room ready. When Nora stepped inside, she almost couldn't stand. She sat on the edge of the bed. The wooden box was in her lap. The envelope was in her hand. For a long time she didn't move. She just held it. She looked at the crib. She looked at herself in the mirror across the room, at the little leaf birthmark just visible above her collar. She looked at Miriam's Bible on the nightstand. She thought about the young woman named Adelaide, in the photograph, laughing beneath a cherry tree in 1995. Adelaide who had lost something, someone. Adelaide, who had packed a small wooden box with the most precious things she had and hidden it. Not thrown it away, hidden it, as if she couldn't bear to send it into the world, but couldn't bear to destroy it either. Nora lowered her head. Lord, she whispered, if this is anything at all, give me the courage to open it. She sat there in the golden lamplight for a long, long time. Then, slowly, she turned the envelope over, and with fingers that were shaking harder than they'd ever shaken in her life, she slid her thumb under the wax seal. The wax seal cracked, just a small sound, a dry snap, nothing dramatic, but Nora felt it in her whole body. She unfolded the pages. There were 3 of them, cream-colored, slightly soft with age. My precious daughter, if you are reading this, then something extraordinary has happened. Something I stopped believing in a long time ago. You should know, before anything else, that you were loved. From the very first moment. From the second the doctor placed you on my chest and told me you were a girl. You had the loudest cry of any baby in the ward. The nurses laughed. Your daddy cried. I looked at you, and I thought, my whole life just started. Nora stopped reading. She pressed her hand to her mouth. Your daddy cried. She let herself breathe. Just once. Then she kept going. Your name was Grace. Grace Adelaide. Your daddy picked Grace because he said you were the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered. without meaning to. You were 14 months old the night the rain came. Nora's stomach turned to ice. The Clearwater River rose so fast. Nobody was ready. Your daddy grabbed you out of the crib. I grabbed the dog. We were going to meet at the truck. I never made it. A wall of water came around the corner of the house. Took me off my feet. I remember hitting my head. I remember the cold. I remember thinking, God, please, not my baby. I woke up in a hospital 3 weeks later. They told me your daddy was dead. They told me you were dead. They said there was no body, but there wouldn't be, not in a flood like that. I never believed them. Every year on the anniversary, I bought you a birthday cake. I ate one slice. I sat with the rest of it. I talked to you. I never remarried. I never stopped waking up at 6 in the morning to pray for you. If you are reading this, my Grace, please, come find me. I have waited every single day. Your mother, Adelaide Hollister. The pages slipped from Nora's hands and landed softly on the quilt. She stared at the wall. The lamp buzzed faintly. Downstairs, Silas had stopped humming. Nora didn't move for a long time. She kept trying to think in straight lines. Except her thoughts wouldn't go in straight lines. They kept snapping in half. Clearwater River. 1997. A baby named Grace. 14 months old. I was adopted. Miriam and Edwin told me when I was 15. They told me I was theirs from the moment they got me. They never told me when. They never told me where. Nora stood up. Too fast. The room spun. She sat down again. She put both hands flat on the quilt. Breathed. The baby inside her shifted. She looked at the letter on the quilt. She looked at the birth certificate. She looked at the photograph of the young woman under the cherry tree. The eyes. She'd known those eyes from the first second. She just hadn't let herself say it. They were her own eyes. Nora sat with that. Just sat with it. Then she picked up the letter again, held it to her chest, and whispered into the quiet room. Okay, Adelaide. Okay, I hear you. She didn't sleep that night. Not really. She lay on the twin bed, with the wooden box on the pillow beside her. She stared at the ceiling until it turned blue with dawn. At some point around 4 in the morning, she made a decision. She didn't know if that baby in the flood was her, but she was going to find out, because there was a woman in the world, somewhere, who woke up every morning at 6 to pray for a daughter she thought was dead. And if there was even a chance, that the daughter was Nora, then that woman deserved to know. Silas made her eggs the next morning. He didn't ask her about the letter. He just poured her coffee and set the sugar bowl close. Silas, I need to go to the library today. All right, I don't have a car that's really running. I'll drive you. You don't have to. Nora. What? I've got nowhere else to be. Please stop apologizing for being alive. She almost cried into her eggs. The Willow Creek Public Library was a squat brick building with a flagpole out front. The head librarian was a woman named Margaret Colwyn. Gray hair pulled back into a bun. Reading glasses on a chain around her neck. The kind of woman who had probably known every book in that building since Reagan was in office. She looked up when Nora approached. You look like someone who needs more than a book, she said. I do. Tell me. Nora took a breath. I'm looking for information about the Clearwater flood in Missouri, 1997. Margaret's face softened. Oh, she said. That was a bad one. April 18th. 43 dead. Nora's throat tightened. I need old newspaper records. From April of 97. Margaret nodded once. This way. The microfiche machine hummed like an old refrigerator. Nora scrolled through the Clearwater County Gazette. April 16th, 17th, 18th. The headline on the 19th said, River takes everything. Death toll rising. She scrolled through pages of names. Photographs of destroyed houses. Page 7 had a list. Confirmed deceased. She ran her finger down it. Adderley, Robert. Baxter, Elaine and John. Fitzgerald, Michael. She skipped ahead. Then Hollister Everett James. Age 30. Local. Body recovered April 21st. Nora stopped breathing. Hollister Grace Adelaide. Age 14 months. Local. Presumed deceased. Body not recovered. Presumed deceased. Body not recovered. Nora read that line 4 times. Then she pushed back from the microfiche machine and stood up too fast. Her chair scraped. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. Margaret came fast, put a hand on Nora's arm. "Honey, sit down. You've gone white as paper." "I'm fine. I'm. Sit." Nora sat. Margaret went and got her a paper cup of water from the cooler by the door. Nora drank it in one swallow. "I need to find someone," Nora finally said. "All right. A woman named Adelaide Hollister. She'd be in her late 50s now." Margaret nodded. "Give me an hour." The address book from the hidden compartment was small, leather-bound. Most of the entries were faded, but one entry was written in fresh ink. Bold, clear. St. Anne's Family Records, Kansas City, Missouri. Below it, a phone number and a name, Sister Bernadette Doyle. Nora stared at that entry for a long time. Someone had written this recently. Someone had wanted this to be findable. She glanced up. Margaret was coming back with a printout. "Adelaide Hollister," Margaret said, sliding the paper across the desk. "There are 3 in the country. 2 of them are too young. One of them lives about 90 minutes from here. Assisted living facility called Maple Creek. Cottage number 14. Nora took the paper with both hands. 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Nora stared at the address. Then she picked up her phone. Dialed the number for St. Anne's. 3 rings. A gentle, low voice answered. "St. Anne's Records. This is Sister Bernadette." Nora opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Hello. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. My name is Nora Whitfield. I found something. Some documents. I think they might be connected to an old case." Silence on the other end. Then Sister Bernadette said, very softly, "Can you tell me a name?" "Hollister. Adelaide Hollister. And Grace." Nora heard the sister exhale. It was the sound of a woman who had been waiting a very long time. "Miss Whitfield." "Yes." "How soon can you come to Kansas City?" Silas drove her. He filled the truck up with gas, packed her a sandwich in a paper bag, and slid a bottle of water into the cup holder. Then he pulled onto the highway and let the road do the talking. Nora rode with the wooden box on her lap. She kept thinking about Miriam, her mother, the mother who'd raised her, who'd taught her to make biscuits from scratch, who'd braided her hair every Sunday morning before church, who'd worked 2 jobs so Nora could take piano lessons, who'd read Little Women aloud to her every night for 6 weeks straight. Miriam Whitfield, who had died of ovarian cancer at 51, who had held Nora's hand in the hospital bed, and whispered with everything she had left, "Baby, baby, I love you, I love you, I love," and then just stopped. Nora had held that hand for another 20 minutes, before the nurse gently took it from her. Now here she was, in a truck with a man who felt more like family than any human being had felt in years, driving to see a nun in Kansas City, because if this was real, then Miriam and Edwin had known. You don't accidentally end up with a 14-month-old baby in 1997. Not in a rural county. Not without someone bringing that baby to you. They had known, and they had never told her. Silas glanced sideways at her. "You holding up, dear?" "I don't know. That's fair." "Silas, what if this isn't me?" "Then you go home, and you keep looking, or you don't. That's up to you." "And if it is me?" "Then a woman who has been waiting 28 years finally gets her answer." Nora nodded. She didn't trust her voice. St. Anne's Records was a small brick building tucked behind a Catholic church on the north side of Kansas City. Ivy grew up one wall. Sister Bernadette was waiting. She was maybe 70. Small. Compact. A short gray habit. and a wooden cross around her neck. Her eyes were the eyes of someone who had heard every kind of story a human being could tell, and still, somehow, believed in people. She took Nora's hands in both of hers when they met. "Sit down, dear. Sit." Then she said, "Show me what you've brought me." Nora opened the wooden box. She laid everything on the desk. Sister Bernadette read the letter in complete silence. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't move. But when she got to the last line, Nora saw her lips pressed together very tight. She set the letter down. She removed her reading glasses. "Miss Whitfield," she said. "Nora, please. Nora, I have been working with adoption and family records for 42 years. I have opened Adelaide Hollister's file more times than I can count." Nora's mouth went dry. She has been coming here since 1999, once a year, every February, around what would have been her daughter's birthday. She sits in that chair right where you are sitting. And she asks the same question. "Is there any new information?" Every year I have had to tell her no. Sister Bernadette looked directly at Nora. "I have not been looking forward to seeing her this year, either." Nora couldn't speak. Sister Bernadette folded her hands. "May I ask you something? Something a little personal?" "Yes. When you were a child, did you have a birthmark? Anywhere on your body?" Nora's stomach dropped. "Yes. Can you tell me where?" Slowly, very slowly, Nora reached up, pulled the collar of her cardigan and her t-shirt aside, bared her left shoulder. There it was, the small, pale, leaf-shaped mark she'd had her whole life. Sister Bernadette stared at it. Then she stood up, went to a filing cabinet against the wall, pulled out a thick manila folder, brought it back, opened it. She removed a single sheet of paper, a copy of what looked like a hospital intake record from Clearwater County Memorial Hospital, dated February 14th, 1996. She turned the paper around and slid it across the desk. Nora read, "Infant female, birth weight 7 pounds 2 ounces. Mother, Adelaide Hollister. Father, Everett Hollister. Distinguishing marks: small, pale, leaf-shaped birthmark, upper left posterior shoulder." Nora didn't move. Sister Bernadette said, so quietly Nora almost didn't hear, "Oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, thank you." Then she came around the desk. She knelt down in front of Nora. She took Nora's hands in both of hers again, and she prayed, right there, on the office carpet, in her old woman's voice. Nora bowed her head and let the tears come. She'd been holding them in since the microfiche machine. She let them come. Sister Bernadette poured her a fresh cup of water afterward. She let Nora catch her breath. Finally Nora said, "I don't understand how this happened. That is what we should try to find out. My mother, Miriam, she and my father, Edwin, adopted me. They told me when I was 15. Do you know how the adoption came about?" "No," Miriam always said. "She always said I was a gift from God. I thought she meant it like people mean it, just as a phrase. But now Where are your parents, Nora?" "Both gone. My mother in 2011. My father the year after." "I am so sorry, dear." Nora nodded, her throat too full to speak. "Do you have any of their old records? Papers? Anywhere that might have information from that time?" "I have a box of their things. It's in Silas's guest room. Their Bible is in there. I never went through it. Couldn't. When Daddy died, I put it all in a box and closed the lid." Sister Bernadette nodded. Slowly, "Nora, if I may, if I were you, I would go home tonight and I would open that box. Because the answer may be there." Nora nodded. Sister Bernadette held up one finger. "But before you leave, I want you to know one thing. If this is what we think it is, if you are Grace Adelaide Hollister, then somewhere between the Clearwater River and the Whitfield family, someone made a choice. Someone saved you. Whether that person was your adoptive parents or not, someone reached into that flood and someone reached out with love. That is not a small thing." Nora nodded again. "Also, Sister Bernadette's face softened. Adelaide Hollister lives 45 minutes from here, in Maple Creek, Cottage 14. When you are ready, I think a phone call would not be enough. Nora stared at her. You want me to just show up? Sister Bernadette gave her a look. Not smiling, not stern, something in between. Nora, if she has been praying every morning at 6 for 28 years. She has been getting up every morning for 28 years. Just in case. The sun was setting when they pulled into Silas's driveway. He put the truck in park. He looked at her. You want me to stay out of your hair tonight? I don't think I want to be alone. Then I'll be in the kitchen, making tea. You come down whenever. She squeezed his hand. She went upstairs. She stood in the middle of the guest room, looking at the cardboard box in the corner. The box she hadn't touched in 14 years. She sat down on the floor beside it. She peeled back the tape. Slowly. Inside was Miriam's whole life. A rosary, a recipe book with grease stains on the cover, pair of reading glasses, a photo album, a small ceramic bird, the leather Bible with the worn cover. Nora picked up the Bible. She hadn't held it since the funeral. She opened it. On the first page, in Miriam's careful handwriting, Miriam and Whitfield, given by my mama, May, 1975. Nora turned the page, and the next, and the next. Miriam had underlined verses in blue pen. She had written notes in the margins. Little dates. April 18, 1997. Lord, be with the people of Clearwater tonight. Nora stopped. She stared at the note. April 18, 1997. Her hands were shaking, so badly the pages rattled. She kept turning, kept looking, and then, halfway through the book, tucked between 2 pages of the Book of Psalms, a photograph slipped out. Polaroid, faded, slightly bent at one corner. It showed a woman standing on a porch in the rain. Her hair was wet. Her jacket was soaked through. She was holding a baby. The baby was wrapped in a soaked pink blanket. The baby's eyes were closed. The baby's mouth was open mid-cry. The woman on the porch was Miriam. Miriam, younger, maybe 30, looking straight at the camera, with the fiercest expression Nora had ever seen on her mother's face. Nora turned the photo over. On the back, in Miriam's handwriting, faded but still readable, baby girl, found on the riverbank, Clearwater County, April 19, 1997. Lord, we don't know who she belongs to. We tried the sheriff, we tried the churches, we tried the hospitals. Nobody knows. Nobody wants her. We are taking her home. We are going to love her until her real mama comes for her. And if her real mama never comes, then we will love her anyway. Forever. Edwin and Miriam. Nora sat on the floor of the guest room. She held the photograph against her chest. She cried like she was 15 years old again, like she was in that hospital room again, like her mother's hand had just gone still in hers, because she understood now. She understood all of it. Miriam and Edwin had found her. On the riverbank, the day after the flood, they had tried. They had actually tried to find her family. They had gone to the sheriff, to the churches, to the hospitals. But this was 1997. Rural Missouri. A flood so bad that whole counties were still trying to figure out who was dead and who was alive. Somebody had told them nobody had reported a missing baby. Somebody had probably meant well. Somebody had said, keep her. Love her. And they had. They had loved her for 14 years. Nora looked up at the ceiling. Mama, she whispered. She said it out loud. To the empty room. Mama, I understand. I understand what you did. She held the photograph to her chest. And she stayed on the floor for a long, long time. Silas came upstairs an hour later. He knocked softly. Nora, dear, come in. He opened the door, took in the scene. Her on the floor, the Bible open, the Polaroid on the quilt. He sat down on the edge of the bed. He didn't say anything. Nora handed him the photograph. Silently, he looked at it, turned it over. Read the back. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "That is the bravest thing I have ever read." Nora nodded. They knew Silas. They knew I might have people out there, and they still tried to find them. They did, dear. And when nobody came, they just loved me anyway. That is what love does. Nora wiped her face. "I'm going to Maple Creek tomorrow." Silas nodded. "I'll drive you." She spent the evening on Silas's living room floor, spreading everything out on the rug. The photographs from the wooden box, the letters from Adelaide's mother, the birth certificate, the bracelet, the locket, and the Polaroid from Miriam's Bible. She was trying to put a life together, from two directions. Adelaide, who had lost her, Miriam, who had found her, both of them mothers, both of them loving her. For 28 years, two women had prayed for one little girl. In two different states, in two different lives, not knowing about each other, not even knowing if the other one existed. And somehow the world had held the little girl safe. Long enough for her to be here, on a rug, in Kansas, with a baby of her own. She smiled through her tears. She went to bed early. She didn't sleep, but she rested. At 5:30, she got up. She showered. She put on the one nice dress she still owned, a soft green thing that had been Miriam's back when Miriam was young and thin and Nora was in college and could just fit into her mother's clothes. She put on the antique gold locket. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like Adelaide in the cherry blossom photograph. She looked like Miriam in the Polaroid. She looked like herself. She looked like a woman who had two mothers, and one of them was still waiting. Silas was already in the kitchen. He'd put on a clean shirt. He'd shaved. He handed her a cup of coffee. "You ready, dear?" "No. Neither was I. My wedding day. Ruth's father let me hide in the church basement for 20 minutes, before he came and got me." Nora laughed. She actually laughed. They walked out to the truck. The sun was just coming up, over the fields, pink and gold. Silas held the passenger door open for her. Nora paused, one hand on the door. She looked at the sky. Somewhere, 45 minutes away, in a cottage in Maple Creek, a woman was waking up, kneeling by her bed, beginning her daily prayer. "Lord, if she is out there, please, bring her home." Nora took a breath. She climbed into the truck. She whispered, to Adelaide, to Miriam, to God, to whoever was listening, "I'm coming." Maple Creek Retirement Village sat at the end of a long, tree-lined road, the kind of place that had been designed to look peaceful. Rows of little white cottages with green shutters. Pond in the middle with a wooden footbridge. An American flag on a pole out front, moving slow in the morning breeze. Silas turned off the engine. Neither of them moved. Nora looked out through the windshield. She could see Cottage 14 from where they'd parked. It was the third one on the left. Sky blue door. A ceramic angel on the porch step. A wind chime made of small silver bells hanging from a hook by the window. She stared at it. The wind chime moved. She could hear it, faintly, even through the closed truck window. "Silas." "Yes, dear. I can't. You can." "What if she doesn't believe me?" "She'll believe you." "What if I say the wrong thing?" "Nora, that woman has been waiting for you her whole life. There is no wrong thing you can say." Nora nodded. She put her hand on the door handle. She didn't move. Then something inside her, small and firm, said, "Go." She pushed the door open. The morning air was cool. Somewhere down the row, a screen door slammed. A dog barked once, then stopped. Nora walked toward Cottage 14. She was carrying the wooden box in both hands. Like an offering, like something that might break. Every step felt like a mile. She reached the porch. She raised her hand. She almost knocked, but before her knuckles touched the door opened. A woman stood there, small, silver-haired, in a soft cardigan, a watering can in her hand. Her face was lined, gentle, tired the way faces get tired after years of grief. But her eyes, they were Nora's eyes, not similar, Not close. The same. Adelaide Hollister looked at the young pregnant woman on her porch. She didn't recognize her. Not yet. Can I help you, dear? Her voice was warm. Curious. A little confused. Nora opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Are you Adelaide? Yes. Adelaide Hollister? Yes, honey. Nora's throat closed. She lowered her eyes. She reached with a trembling hand into the collar of her dress. She lifted the antique gold locket, held it up, held it out. Adelaide's watering can slipped from her fingers. It hit the porch with a hollow thud. Water pooled on the wooden boards. Adelaide didn't look down. She was looking at the locket. Her hand rose, very slowly, like it wasn't her hand at all. Her fingers closed around the locket. She turned it over, ran her thumb along the engraved flowers. She knew every one of them. She had picked them out herself, in a jewelry store in Kansas City, in 1996, when her baby was 6 months old. Her lips moved. No sound came out. She tried again. Where? That was all she could get out. Nora couldn't speak either, but she reached into the wooden box in her arms, and she pulled out the small silver bracelet, the one engraved with Adelaide's name. She held it up in her other hand. Adelaide made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. Small, broken. The sound a woman makes when a part of her that has been asleep for 28 years suddenly wakes up all at once. Her knees gave out. Nora dropped the box, lunged forward. Silas was already running from the truck. He was faster than a man his age should be. He caught Adelaide from the other side. Together they eased her down to sit on the porch swing. She was shaking, all over. She was clutching the locket, so hard her knuckles had gone white. Nora knelt in front of her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to just show up like this. Adelaide's other hand came up, cupped Nora's cheek. Nora went still. Adelaide's palm was warm, slightly rough. The palm of a woman who had gardened her whole life. Her thumb moved slowly across Nora's cheekbone. She was memorizing her, the way mothers memorize newborns, feature by feature, slowly, reverently, like this was a face she'd been trying to see for 28 years. Grace, Adelaide whispered. Nora's tears came. Grace, is it you? Nora nodded. She couldn't make her voice work. She just nodded and nodded. Say it, please, baby. Say it out loud. Nora put her hand over Adelaide's. Mama, she said. The word came out cracked, but it came out. Adelaide let out a sound Nora would remember for the rest of her life. It wasn't a sob. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of 28 years of prayer being answered in a single breath. She pulled Nora into her arms. Nora buried her face in her mother's cardigan. It smelled like lavender, and ivory soap, and something else, something she couldn't name, something that felt like the deepest, oldest memory of her whole life. Silas backed away quietly. He went to sit on the porch step. He wiped his eyes with a handkerchief he'd had folded in his pocket for exactly this reason. The mother and daughter held each other for a long, long time. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They sat inside eventually. Adelaide's cottage was small and neat. Everything had a place. A crocheted afghan on the back of a floral couch. A framed cross stitch on the wall that read "This home believes." A small kitchen that smelled like cinnamon. And on the fireplace mantel, Nora couldn't stop looking at it, was a single framed photograph. A baby, 14 months old. Blonde curls. A wide, unafraid smile. Sitting in a high chair with cake smeared on her face. Grace. First birthday. February 1997. Nora's breath caught. Adelaide watched her look. That was you. 2 months before. Nora couldn't answer. Adelaide made them tea. Chamomile. In 2 mismatched mugs. Silas took us outside. I'll sit on your porch, ladies. I'm no good indoors when I'm this happy. Adelaide sat down across from Nora at the tiny kitchen table. She reached across. She took Nora's hand. She just held it. Tell me about your daddy, Nora finally whispered. Adelaide breathed in slow. Your daddy's name was Everett. Everett James Hollister. He was a mechanic. Had the biggest laugh you ever heard. And the softest heart. He cried when the mailman's dog died. Nora smiled through her tears. He was so scared to have a baby. He said he didn't know anything about babies. He said he was going to break you. And then, the moment I put you in his arms, he just went quiet. And he sat down in that hospital chair. And he stared at you. And he didn't say a word for 20 minutes. And then he looked up at me and he said, Addie, I know what I am now. I am her daddy. That's the whole thing. Nora squeezed her eyes shut. He had your chin, Adelaide said softly, and your laugh. And these funny little thumbs that bent backward at the top joint, just like yours. Nora looked at her own thumbs, laughed, wet. I always thought I got these from my dad. Baby, you did. They sat with that. Mama, Nora said, you waited so long. Adelaide nodded. Every morning at 6. Yes. Sister Bernadette told me. She's a good woman. She never turned me away. Not 1 year. Nora reached into her purse. She pulled out the Polaroid. The one from Miriam's Bible. She laid it on the table between them. Adelaide picked it up. She stared at it. The rain. The porch. The soaked pink blanket. The stranger holding the baby. She turned it over. She read the writing on the back. She read it 3 times. Then she pressed the photograph against her chest and bent forward at the waist and made a sound Nora had never heard a human being make. It was grief and gratitude and love and all of them at once. Oh my God, Adelaide whispered. She found you. She found you. She found you. Her name was Miriam. Miriam and Edwin Whitfield. They lived 30 miles down the river from Clearwater. On the Missouri-Kansas line. They were volunteering that day. Everyone was looking for people. The blanket. Adelaide covered her mouth. My mother made that blanket. She crocheted it while I was pregnant. She used pink because she said, it's a girl. I know it in my bones. And she was right. Adelaide sobbed. Nora reached across and pulled her mother into her arms this time. She held her tight. She rocked her. She stroked her silver hair. She whispered, it's okay, Mama. It's okay. Even though it was the biggest and most impossible okay she had ever spoken. Eventually Adelaide pulled back, wiped her eyes. Tell me about her, Miriam, please. Nora smiled. She was tall. She loved lipstick. 1 shade. Every single day. Wouldn't be caught dead without it. Adelaide laughed. A watery laugh. She taught me piano. She made me eat my vegetables. She read me Little Women out loud when I was 9. She braided my hair on Sunday mornings. She worked 2 jobs so I could take dance lessons. She sang off key in church every single week. Nora stopped. She had to breathe. She loved me, Mama. She loved me like I was hers. Because I was. Adelaide nodded. Yes, baby. You were. Nora looked at her. But I'm yours too. Yes. I can be both. Can't I? Adelaide took her hands. You are both, sweetheart. That's not a math problem. That's a miracle. Nora broke down again. Because she had needed to hear that. She had needed to hear it more than she'd known. They talked all afternoon. Adelaide made grilled cheese with tomato. She insisted Nora eat. You are eating for 2, baby. And I have 28 years of feeding you to catch up on. Silas came in at some point. He'd gone into town and come back with a small bakery box. He'd bought a lemon cake. He set it in the middle of the table without saying a word. You are a good man, Silas, Adelaide said. I try, ma'am. Adelaide. Adelaide. They ate cake. They laughed. In the middle of everything else, they laughed. They cried some more. Adelaide showed Nora photo albums. A whole shelf of them. She showed Nora the parents Nora had never met. The grandparents. The cousins. A whole family tree Nora had never known she had. She showed Nora a picture of Everett. Her father. He would have loved you so much, Adelaide whispered. I know he would have. Nora put her hand on Adelaide's. He is the softest daddy in the world. He's still my daddy. Nothing takes that away. Adelaide bit her lip. She nodded. Late in the afternoon, the light going long, and gold across the kitchen, Nora pulled out Miriam's Bible. She set it on the table. She opened it to the page. She showed Adelaide. April 18, 1997. Lord, be with the people of Clearwater tonight. Adelaide traced the words with her finger. Her chest rose and fell. She prayed for us? Adelaide whispered. Before she ever knew. Before she ever knew. Adelaide looked up. Her eyes were bright and full. 2 mothers, baby. 2 mothers on their knees for you at the same time. And neither of us knew about the other one. Nora couldn't speak. Adelaide put her hand on Nora's belly. Very lightly, the baby responded. Adelaide's face did something Nora would remember forever. It just broke open into pure, unfiltered joy. Oh, Adelaide whispered. Oh, hello, little one. I was thinking of naming her Grace. Adelaide's hand flew to her mouth. Grace Adelaide Whitfield. Adelaide made that sound again. The impossible one. I don't deserve that. Yes, you do. Baby. No. I don't. Mama. Yes, you do. Adelaide bent down and pressed her forehead against Nora's belly. She whispered something. Nora couldn't hear the words, but she thought they might have been a prayer. Silas drove them home that evening. All 3 of them. Adelaide came too. She'd packed a small overnight bag in about 4 minutes flat. I have waited 28 years, she said. I am not letting you out of my sight tonight. Nora didn't argue. The next weeks passed in a way Nora would later describe as the fastest slow month of her life. Adelaide moved into Silas's guest room. Temporarily, she said, just until Nora got on her feet. But nobody talked about her leaving. Nathaniel Ashcroft came out on a Tuesday. He inspected the Whitmore rocking chair for 2 hours. He used a magnifying glass. He photographed the maker's mark from 4 angles. He shook his head. Then he made an offer. Not 11,000. 17,500. Nora almost fell off her chair. She used a chunk of it to catch up on medical bills. She used a chunk of it to put a deposit on a small 2-bedroom rental just 3 doors down from Silas, because there was no way she was moving farther than that. She put the rest in savings. Adelaide came to every doctor's appointment. At the 6-week point, Adelaide told Nora very quietly over coffee on Silas's porch that she wanted to drive up to the little country cemetery in Missouri, where Miriam and Edwin were buried. She wanted to lay flowers. She wanted to say thank you. Nora went with her. They stood at the 2 matching headstones on a windy October morning. Adelaide had brought 2 bouquets. White roses. She laid one on Miriam's grave, one on Edwin's. Then she got down on her knees in the grass. Nora tried to help her stand. She waved her off, and she stayed there for a long time. She wasn't crying. She was talking. Nora couldn't hear the words. When Adelaide finally stood up, her cheeks were wet, but she was smiling. What did you say to her? Nora asked softly. Adelaide took her arm. They walked back toward the car. I told her thank you. I told her she was the best mother a lost child could have asked for. And I told her that when I meet her up there someday I owe her a hug that lasts about 1,000 years. Nora laughed and cried. Both. I also told her something else. What? I told her our little Grace has 2 grandmas now. One in heaven, one right here, and that both of us are going to spoil that baby rotten. Nora walked with her mother back to the car. She thought her heart might just quietly stop from being too full. Baby Grace Adelaide Whitfield was born on a Saturday in February. 6 pounds 14 ounces, 20 inches long, a full head of dark hair. A cry that filled the whole labor and delivery ward. Adelaide was in the room. Silas was in the waiting area with a bunch of blue and pink balloons, because he couldn't remember which one Nora had said. Sister Bernadette had driven 90 miles that morning. She was in the hallway with a rosary and a small bottle of holy water. Nora, sweaty, exhausted, radiant, held her baby against her chest and looked up at her mother, Adelaide's face. Nora would keep that face in her heart until she died. Adelaide was looking at Grace like she was looking at Grace. Not this Grace, the first Grace, the one she'd lost, the one who was now, somehow, impossibly inside this new one. Adelaide reached out a shaking hand. Nora placed the baby in her arms. Adelaide held her granddaughter to her chest. She bent her forehead down against the baby's forehead. She whispered, and Nora would only barely catch it. "Hello, my Grace. Hello, sweet girl. Grandma's had you a long, long time in her heart. I'm so glad you're finally here." Nora cried. Silas cried. Even the nurse cried. Sister Bernadette put a hand on the doorframe and looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, thank you." They took Grace home to Nora's little rental 3 days later. Silas had painted the nursery, yellow like his guest room lamp. Adelaide had crocheted a blanket. She'd been working on it for 4 weeks straight, pink, just like the one Miriam had wrapped Nora in on the riverbank in 1997. Sister Bernadette had brought a small silver cross on a chain to hang above the crib. She said every child in this family gets one. That is now the rule. Nora sat in the Whitmore rocking chair, the one that had started it all, with Grace in her arms. She rocked, slow, steady. Silas was in the kitchen. Adelaide was setting the table. She could hear them talking softly. Silas telling some story from his boyhood. Adelaide laughing. Nora looked down at her daughter. Grace was asleep, her tiny mouth open, one little fist tucked under her cheek. Nora bent down, pressed her lips to Grace's forehead. "Sweet girl," she whispered, "you are never going to be alone. Do you hear me? Not for 1 second of your life. Because before you were even born, there were people already loving you. There were people already praying for you. There were people already making room at their tables. That is the family you were born into. And nothing that ever happens to you in your whole life is going to be able to take that away." She thought about her grandfather Everett, who had died saving her, before she was even born. About her grandmother Adelaide, who never stopped praying. About Miriam, her mama, who had found her in the rain, and loved her like she was her own. About Edwin, her daddy, who had said yes without asking questions. About Silas, who had seen a girl sleeping in her car, and decided that was not going to stand. About Sister Bernadette, who had kept the door open all those years. She thought about that night in the diner parking lot, when she'd counted $28 on the dashboard, when she'd been so sure her life was over, and she smiled, quietly, into the dark room, because it hadn't been over. It had been beginning. She had thought she was buying a place to sleep. She had thought she was hiding from the world. Instead, she had walked straight into her whole life. Some things aren't accidents. Some rooms are being prepared for you before you ever knock. Some prayers get answered 28 years late. But answered. They get answered. Nora looked toward the kitchen doorway. Adelaide was standing there. She was watching them, her hands folded over her heart.